Hello friends, David Vos here, and I'm in Alabama. Guess what? It's still raining. Guess there's no drought here this week. And it's pretty nice out. A little humid. But it's been cloudy and rainy for like a week. Well, hope you're having a wonderful day where you guys are, wherever you may be. Because there is reason to be happy. I got some good news. I'm going to be giving you this good news today. I hope you'll stay tuned. I think you're going to be happy to hear this because I'm only going to give you a little bit of this good news. And so you're going to have to stay tuned, for the coming videos. I'm going to start doing a series about, I don't know that I'll call it this, but it will be about the good news that I'm going to share with you. It's going to blow your mind. I mean, it's a lot better than you think. We've been hearing a lot of bad news, and I've been telling people a lot of bad news, but it's kind of, it kind of sounds like bad news. It does seem like bad news at first, and I was having a little struggle of my own dealing with it. Hey, the end of the world's coming. Well, that's a little depressing, and we know that that's happening. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, the regime change is coming. The end of this society, the present world that we live in, is coming very, very shortly. We're now in the Great Tribulation. And, we're not going to do a whole bunch on that today and explain and prove that. We've done lots of videos. This is a series. My whole channel is a series. I need to tell you some facts. I need to get some information to you guys today. So I'm not going to go back and rehearse a bunch of stuff that we've been saying. I think most of those who followed me to this point, and now I'm just getting a few hundred people watching because I'm over here on this other channel because they've taken me off YouTube for a couple of weeks. And even over on YouTube, they've shadow banned me down to where I feel like I'm only talking to the choir. So you guys out there, the choir, I hope you'll continue to watch and share this with your family and friends because at times you may feel that this is comforting to you, but no one else would listen, or there's, why would you share it? Nobody wants to hear it. I understand how you feel, but I'm telling you that there is going to be some revelations over the next few weeks, because I know a lot of people are like, what are you talking about, Reb? Why don't you just tell us what you want to say? Well, it's really deep. We're in a maze. We're in a, what is it called? The Labyrinth. You know the movie? It's like that. I mean, it's like, I found out there's a greater deception going on than what we're consciously aware of. I knew that it was there when I was a little boy. I've talked about that. I think there are a few others like myself, and I have a reason for that too, which will probably at some point throughout this series called the David Vos channel, we'll probably get to some of these other reasons. I can't get to them all today. I want to stick to a theme here. I need a door to get into this information, an avenue, so that you can, bring this amazing, very powerful truth down to our level where we're consciously able to understand it. You see, it's kind of like math. Now, if I asked you what is the square root of 458 billion times the square root of 3, you wouldn't know. There's probably an answer to that, but you wouldn't be able to figure that out with your mind, unless you had remembered the answer. But to figure or to work that problem out, you would need a tool. It's just too much. Now, it's like on Earth when there's a rock that's 40 tons. One human being cannot lift it. There's no way that a human being can lift it. Don't even ponder that concept. It can't be done. But a human being could lift it outside of his own natural strength by getting a tool, a crane, build a motor, some contraption or invention. There are ways to do things. You can overcome gravity with aerodynamics. Well, so the knowledge of how to get out of this world, how to understand the world we live in, and whether or not any of this is real, or whether we're in a schoolroom test, are we in a hologram, is anything going, I mean, most of you are like, what are you, insane? Of course this world's real. You've been watching too many movies like The Truman Show. Friends, I think it's, I'll just tell you right off the bat so that you don't have to wonder. I'm not going to be obfuscating or pretending, to tell you one thing when I mean another. Okay, what am I all about here? What am I going to tell you? What's the great secret? Well, I'm going to tell you that everything is a lie, that the world we live in is really just a scam. We're living in the Truman Show. The fabric of this world, the very fabric. Talk about the flat earth. Oh, buddy. I'm going to prove to you that we're not only not in a scientific, cosmos, as they say. The cosmos as scientists today describe it is made up, wholly made up from whole cloth. It is completely a fantasy. It is literally an agenda. It's just a model to get us to think a certain way. They've developed the model for thousands of years. Now, am I saying that we don't have phones in front of us, that there's no such thing as computers? No, we do have computers. But actually, what I'm saying is that it's sleight of hand. So, just to let you know what this video and maybe the next video and the next after that, we're going to be talking a lot about this. And we're going to show that there's more in this world that's not real than what you thought. Some people know that the doctors are all frauds. At least maybe in the last couple of years have a lot of people begin to figure that out, that they're lying to us. Some people don't like the doctors and haven't, well, I should say that the lawyers and the court system, the lawyer system, people have been saying that's a fraud for a long time. And I think there's a lot of people just haven't gone to jail and they don't have experienced that too much. And they just think, well, it's not that bad, right? At least we're not the Soviet Union or something. Well, we're worse than the Soviet Union, and it is a lot worse than most people think. But you see, now people are beginning to see how bad it might be. There are people waking up. But I'm about to tell you that it's much worse than that. Yeah, there's propaganda too. And yeah, the news is not telling you some truth or a little truth, mostly lies. They're just telling you all lies. And they're orchestrating your own thought processes in your own head. The movies are training you what to believe, what to think. Yeah, they made you like the system of order, the New World Order. They made you like that by showing you disorder and anarchy and making you so scared of that you're going to go and vote for the party of the law and order. More military spending and, more nuclear weapons and deterrent. And we've got to have law. We can't let people run around just doing whatever they want. Right? The father of the thing. An AI system. That's what people want. More gadgets. More prisons. More laws. More government. More parks. More permits to crack down on the neighbors because we don't like what they're doing. And hey, we don't need any individuality. So, what I'm about to tell you is that most of the concept of the system that we're under, the concepts that we're assuming are fair, like the idea that there ought to be a law somewhere, that somehow we need government, just those very small, intricate, deep principles. People don't know the meaning of those principles. Therefore, how could they understand just how far gone we are in the higher stages of the structure of this enterprise we call society, when they don't even realize that the basis of human existence is that we are individual free agents and no man should rule over us. We have liberty and the pursuit of happiness, justice, and everything like that. And we have the lies that people are under, where they will speak against their neighbors, and which is really speaking against their own soul, putting themselves in prison because, like a little good, hamster that has learned how to mind her business and stay in her little cage and wait for the cheese. They think they're happy because they get their cheese every week, but that's all they've ever known. They get a lot of pleasure. They get some probes hooked to their brain, and it's sending signals to the happy circuit, right? And every time they push that button, they get a treat, and they're like, oh, I love it, but they're getting fatter, and they can't even waddle their way out of the cage now and go play with the daisies out in the field. They don't even want to go out there anymore. They don't want to go into nature. They just want a park built where there's like a wheelchair accessible sidewalk going down to the lake, because they're going to be in wheelchairs. They're not going to do any hiking, but they want a sort of a bridge built out over the canyon where they can take their wheelchair out there and take a look. Or now, you know what? Forget all that. That's too much trouble. Just put it on film. Like, it doesn't even have to be real. Just make it up. Digital. They'll watch it on television. That's all they care about. Just plug something in their ear. Enjoy all the pleasures of life. But not be real. That's where we're going. But, you see, by the time people got to that point, where they were living in a hologram and they didn't know it, that would be pretty big tragedy, that they'd been sucked into that hologram where they're now paraplegic and they got to sit their paraplegic body on a skateboard and paddle around, maybe with an electric motor, because they're too tired. They don't really have limbs. They've atrophied. They don't even, they have to, everywhere you go, it's basically maybe it'll be the point where it'll be inside of a computer, our mind, our essence. We're living in some sort of the metaverse, right? So, by that time, people are gone. You can't bring them back. It's like you can't tell an animal to now, you better think twice about doing that again. They can't think. They're living off of instinct. That's their nature. And then people today, we're not living according to our nature. But if people continue to allow their mind to be warped and deceived into this existence that we're, this hypocrisy that we're living in, that we're really like building up all kinds of karma. So I'm about to show you that most of these, you've heard about things like the Columbine, won't say anymore, Sandy Hook. Okay, just to let you know, anybody's reading between the lines right here, this is really about getting the gospel out of love and turn the other cheek and giving to others as you would have them given to you. But this system is lying, saying this is a biblical truth, that we have to have government, we have to have law. This is righteousness. And they're convincing people of this. And so, meanwhile, we're being sucked into a computer. Remember when we were free of spiritual law? We shouldn't be under any church. All right. Then we willfully created politics or government. Now we're just under the civil law. We didn't have to be under any law. We made that distinction up. But it was an illusion. We decided, well, we're not, we got to separate church and state. What's the difference? They're both authoritarian. They're both laws. They both tell us don't murder, don't lie, don't cheat, pay your taxes or your tithe or whatever it is that you want to call it. Do what the emperor tells you to do. But they just changed the name. So we went from, we're not religious, now we're not, now somehow that just means you can have any weird religion in your mind you want. Just whatever you believe, but you still have to worship the God that tells you what to do every day and obey all of his commandments, which is the government. So most of the world do not know they're under this system where their mind and thoughts are being forced into believing what they're being trained to believe. And this is what a psychopath is. So I want to show you that our government has been telling us that there was wars going on, and those wars didn't even probably occur. It may have been just a staged event. I'm going to show you that there are no such things. Sorry, I dropped mine. I'm going to tell you that there are no such things as nuclear. It's a scam. The little rocket man's just there to scare you. So you'll give him money and build a deterrent. A nuclear deterrent. Strategic Say that 3 times. Strategic deterrent. Scare the world. Oh, the little rocket man. There's a little guy over there. He's an idiot. See, they all play the part perfectly. You know how the little movie, the little mini-me and the movie. Come on, that's the epitome. You got a little mini-me over there scaring the world with his big little rocket. Big little rocket. And somehow Trump comes in and they make friends, and then, it's all politics. They got a flag, it's red, white, and blue. I'm going to show you that it isn't just politics that's lying. The doctors, the court system, which is a very good example. And the people, literally, the folks, are so blind that they'll sit there and watch these detective shows and talk like it's fair and like, I think he's guilty. And they don't even know that you're not guilty unless proven guilty. You're innocent unless proven guilty. They don't understand. It's like they have no clue. It's like saying, well, I read a manual on how to be an electrician, so now I know how to be an electrician. It's very simple. Well, then they get to messing around and hook up the wrong wire, and boom! They don't understand what they're doing. So, I'm beginning to look around with this in view, and I'm looking at some stories. We've been talking about Diane Downs, who was convicted of murdering her children, and we have shown absolute proof that she didn't do it. I want to show you something about how stuck we are in this world, how blind human beings have become. So that if we don't wake up, I'm trying to imagine just how many people are out there in this world that can grasp what I'm about to say. So I don't know how many people are going to be watching this, but maybe it'd be interesting to take a poll to see just how many people, when they see this, are able to open their eyes and see the truth. And how many will just say, Dave, you're delusional. I believe whatever the government tells me. I'm not going to believe my lying eyes. I'm going to believe what the government tells me. Take a look at this and see what you think.
We've been talking about this videotape. You have watched Diane as she explains in these interviews what happened that night in her version of events. What's your clinical opinion as you watch her?
My clinical opinion is that she's a psychopath.
All right, so there's a nice young woman who's clearly got, in her mind, she truly appears to believe that Diane Downs is a psychopath. And we're going to show you her argument. She's going to give her arguments here in a minute, and I will show you that. But before I let you hear her argument, I want you to look into her eyes and tell me that she's not more than human. I want you to first tell me that she's some sort of superior specimen, that she's so smart that she can understand what people think in their heart, rather than, like, in other words, you can look at somebody and you know what they're thinking, right? You can tell if somebody's lying always. If they don't talk the way you think they ought to talk, then they're got to be lying, right? Could it possibly be that some people, all of us, many of us, are declaring that the emperor has clothes on when, in fact, the only person that can ever figure out that the emperor has no clothes is the one who's been completely stripped of their dignity, beaten, drugged to an inquisition and thrown into the dungeon. And now, some people at that point will confess that the emperor has clothes. Oh, they're beautiful clothes, king. Let me go. I don't want to suffer. And in avoiding suffering is so important, they will lie or do whatever they got to do. As in Rome, do as the Romans. And I believe that this pitiful person right here, I'm just going to tell you, and she's going to be sort of an example of most people in the world. She believes fervently, outwardly, consciously, she believes that the emperor has no clothes, that Diane Downs is guilty, that the law system did everything appropriate and didn't convict an innocent person to life in prison plus 50, 60 years. She believes that, and I think many people do. But I'll tell you, right off the bat, I will show you that if she does believe that, then she either has not seen any of the evidence that says that Diane Downs is innocent, which there is a lots of it, and conclusive. It was proven the day of the murder that Diane Downs had no gun in her hand. She had no gunpowder, no blowback. She had no spattering or blood on her person, which would be impossible because there was blood spattered all over the car. And whoever shot the children was in the car. And everything in the car had blood spatters except Diane Downs. She had no powder. They never found the gun. And they did find the gun where she said it was years later in Arizona. And it turns out that there was a big thing. Well, we won't get into all that. There was cover-up. We know that there was somebody who, well, when they found the gun, they did a ballistic test, and it wasn't the gun that was in the murders. So even if this gun that she had, they said she must have had this gun years before. You know, somebody said, oh yeah, she had the gun. Well, it was years before, and it was in Arizona. When they found it, that gun was not the one that shot the children. Then we have the fact that the day after the murder, the man who did it confessed. And the man's wife confessed that he did it. And his friends confessed. And he was the head of a motorcycle gang, and they all admitted it. And there was a big cover-up. It was a drug deal, and they put a hit on her because she had witnessed a drug deal, and this guy named Haynes that admitted to doing it, it was a hit job. He did it to protect their little, secret society group that had a drug deal go, and she knew about it. And maybe she was threatening to say something. I don't know. Or they just were afraid that since she saw them, that they would intimidate her and shoot her children or something. I don't know exactly what happened. But we do know that there was a big cover-up. There was there actually were people that investigated this man, and he was found to be guilty of this corruption during this time that he was involved with her, and he tried very hard to get her, convicted. There was another lady named Rule who looks to be one of these Bavarians that goes around writing books. The odd thing about her is that she was best friends with Ted Bundy. Years before, she had worked with Ted Bundy and said he was a dear friend. So they were both psychologists, and it seems like they pop up. And like the Columbine or the Sandy, hooker, you know what I'm saying? Like the Alex Jones thing. All of these things are made up psyops, just like we went to the moon. And why they do it is to keep lies going in the system, sometimes to preserve the guilty so they don't get in trouble, like Jeffrey Epstein. Sometimes it's to make, and they'll use it, like to two birds with one stone. They'll use this system and see how far they can trick the public into believing an innocent person's guilty, and they laugh about it. That's because it keeps the world in some sort of stupor, and they learn how they can manipulate the minds of mankind. They can have these trials, and ever so often they'll have a trial maybe about racism and keep us racist, or have a trial about, gay people and keep us, all transgender, or have a trial about, whatever it might be, to make somebody look good or bad, depending on what they're wanting. Depending on what they want the world to believe at that time. They have millions of things going on. Little dramatic, orchestrated events to keep us in a ultra mind control situation. We're living in a psyop. So, I'm saying that this woman looks you square in the eyes, and she either does not know the information that I repeated, and I could tell you another 10 times more information. There are several things, like at least 5 affidavits that say that this other guy did it. He admitted to it. She did not have a gun in her hand. That was proven. The gun that they claimed was the murder weapon, she did not have the gun. They found out that it was not the one that was the murder weapon. And why would a woman murder her kids, but none of them died? Only one of them died. And she runs them to the hospital and tries to get help. She's got a wound that is so terrible on her arm, and the reason she was only shot in the arm, according to her, is because there was a struggle. And she tried to throw the keys, and when the guy shot, it hit her arm. I don't know exactly what happened. But there is absolute proof, verifiable proof, that Diane Downs did not do it, and globs of evidence that there was a cover-up. And there were lots of information that they will not allow this woman. I just watched a whole parole hearing that she did in 2020. And I listened to these 10 or 15 people, whoever they were, that were listening, and they were going to be judging whether she could get parole. And I said to myself, by the time that, as I was about most of the way through this whole parole, several hours of this, I said, you know what? If not one of these individuals decide, after all this, after they've heard all this, if they don't decide to let her go on parole, I mean, hey, they can't change the fact that she's been in jail for 37 years. I understand these people are not judging whether she's guilty or not guilty. And maybe some of them have doubts that maybe she did or didn't do it. But what we're talking about, should she have parole at 67 years old, where her health's getting bad, and with some maybe doubt in somebody's mind, because obviously there was never any proof. It was all circumstantial evidence. And here they are saying, look, unless you admit that you did this, we're going to continue to let you be in prison till you rot. And she says, I'm sorry, but I can't admit to doing something I didn't do. So they won't give her parole. And I said, my faith in human beings is gone. I don't believe there's very few people left in this world that are capable of understanding reality. Everybody is deceived because what they are is what this woman is claiming Diane Downs is. She says she's a psychopath. And I'm saying this woman is a psychopath. I'm saying these doctors are psychopaths. Because they've been trained by psychopaths. And they're parroting what they're being told, like criminals do, like John Gotti would do to save his partner in crime. They'll kill for each other. They'll lie for each other. This is a syndicate, crime syndicate, that is running our world in the media. They own the media, and they're convincing you, and you, if you're going to watch this and believe this psychopath, when she says that this poor woman convicted of doing something she didn't do is the psychopath, then actually, you're the psychopath. Because listen to her definition of what a psychopath is. And you'll see that if I'm right and this woman didn't do it, then she's doing everything that she claims Diane Downs is doing. She's the psychopath. She's the narcissist. She's the one that can't figure out the difference between what is right and what is wrong. Listen to this.
And she demonstrates all of the qualities of a psychopath.
Now, given your assessment of the tape and the court's assessment that she was a sociopath, a narcissist with a histrionic personality, what kind of person are we talking about?
Well, let's start with the dominant one, which is the sociopath. A sociopath is somebody who has a fundamental inability to relate to themselves. When you are growing up, when you are a little kid, you learn how to identify emotions, in part because you see other people and you recognize those emotions in yourself.
All right, so this lady is, just look at her eyes. They're all big and bushy-eyed, and she's just so smart, you know. She's so articulate, you know, and she's got this information she's learned from her Yale University, you know, days, right? And she's going to explain to you why somebody who has no proof against her, you can prove she's a bad person because, see, now you may not know this, but she's so smart. She knows. She can tell by the way she talks. And so she tries to describe what it really means to be a narcissist or a psychopath, I guess is what she's saying. And her conclusion is if you don't agree with society, if you don't act like everybody else, then they consider you different. Now, I can understand that reasoning. I was considered different. And because I was, you know, insecure, because I was taught the world was the devil and everybody was bad and school was bad and they were trying to lie to us at school. I mean, you know, being raised as Jehovah's Witness. So a lot of us are kind of insecure and we don't know how to put our hands, you know, in social gatherings. And there's that kind of thing. They call that, you know, they got all kinds of words for that, you're a misfit. And a lot of these children, they get so scared to be in public because maybe they were abused as a child or the religion taught them crap or whatever, that they're scared. And so they're labeled with these things. Sometimes they're even encouraged. Nowadays, they're literally even being encouraged to doubt their own gender. And so they get really crazy, sometimes suicidal. Governments and religions are making people this way. So I admit that people can be narcissists. Most of them are, including this one, this lady right here, and I will show you. But that's not the argument she's really making. What she's saying is that everybody actually learns, normal people actually learns what's right and wrong, and we all know the difference between what's right and wrong as we grow up. Now that's a good point, and I think she's probably right, except that underneath the current, we're also being taught what is acceptable to speak out about, what we can say. Like, we know that we're not really allowed to have total free speech. We know that we're not allowed to say anything about a particular group of people that run the world. We know that we're not allowed to talk about our opinions of going to the DOCTOR. And if we did, we might have our children removed from the home. We know that we can't say to people our views on maybe transgenderism, or there's lots of things that we're not allowed to do. Now, people who are, I would say, psychopaths, follow the government, knowing in their heart that the government has lied about the moon landing. If they don't know that, then they're just willingly ignorant. They have not done any investigation. They followed blindly. To me, that's a psychopath. To follow blindly a dictator type thing like the government is, and believe everything that the government tells you because they give you rewards and you can hurt people. You see, but deep down, as a child on the playground, you knew that hurting people was bad. But you were also told that, well, the teachers could discipline because we've got to correct people so they can grow up to have a certain opinion. So maybe that's what she's talking about. If you don't have that opinion that the government's trying to mold you into, to believe in everything you're being spoon-fed, and just, pretend that the people that are, not wanted anymore, like those who wake up, we'll call them apostate and disfellowship them so you can't talk to them. Don't want any of our other congregation members talking to the apostates because they might tell them stuff that they don't know. Tell them not to read their literature. Tell them not to believe that kind of thing. So the world is looking at Diane Downs and being told, now listen, if you want to believe in the system that we're in and believe that it's fair so that you can go on from day to day and not be like torn up inside because of the injustice of the world, you'll just believe that all those poor starving people in Africa did it to themselves after all, and all those poor people down in the inner cities that are on drugs, they all did it to themselves. And the darn Chinese are all evil. That's why we had to go over there and drop bombs on them in Hiroshima, well, the Japanese or whatever. And the Iraqi people were all a bunch of fiends, and they were, terrible terrorists. That's why we had to go and wipe them out. All of these things you begin to believe, and you saw the television and said, well, we went to the moon, so you believed it. And you didn't do any investigation. That, to me, is a psychopath. Now, if that's what this woman did, is she just believes that Diane Downs is a psychopath because she doesn't admit that she's wrong, but hasn't done the research and found out that she's not guilty and that they're hiding it, then she's an idiot, to say that at the very least. But if, on the other hand, she does know that Diane Downs is not guilty, and she knows that on some level that she's innocent, but she's overriding that inner belief that she claims everybody should have growing up. And as a child, we all know what's right and wrong. She should know what's right and wrong. She's not a psychopath. She should know that you shouldn't hurt people or accuse them of something they didn't do. And that, a normal, mature adult must know that a person, a woman or a man, is innocent until proven guilty. But somehow they've overridden the program because the government says, no. In this case, the circumstantial evidence is enough, and we are not going to even allow you to think about the other evidence that proves she's innocent. Don't even think about it. That, to me, is a psychopath. And the fact that she's so clear, look at her eyes. She's just so, there's not even a bead of sweat on this woman. She either literally doesn't care about the possibility. I mean, look, the reality is that it's all circumstantial. And if this woman's done any investigation, well, here she is talking about this case as if she knows everything about it. And somehow or another, she doesn't know about the person who confessed and the 5 affidavits and the gun not having been there, and it wasn't the murder weapon, and there was no gunpowder on Diane and no blood spatter. And she doesn't know all this information that all these people say they know what happened and there was a cover-up. She doesn't know. Well, she's either a liar, and the only reason why she's got no sweat running down her face is because they know that nothing you can do to convict them of lying because you'll never find out. Ha, ha, ha. Therefore, she's literally not just a narcissist, but a psychopath. And I think the funny thing is most of the world now is psychopaths because they're all in the same situation. You have to look at every one of them that you meet in the world and say, look, is this person literally ignorant? Just so stupid they don't know? Or are they willingly ignorant? Or are they afraid to tell themselves the truth? Or do they know and they're just lying? Well, many people willingly are ignorant because they're making so much money. They don't want to lose their jobs. So they somehow funnel the information going into their mind, and they only believe what they want to believe. So that is the definition of psychopath. And this woman's a psychopath. And anybody who believes that Diane Downs is guilty, only listening to the government testimony against her, which is all circumstantial and based on whether her facial expressions was appropriate after 10 years, of being in jail. Like, how come you don't act right? You act like you're a little angry there, Miss Diane. Oh, yeah, well, I've been in jail for 37 years, 5 years in solitary confinement, night and day, 24 hours in solitary confinement, didn't see a soul, accused of, escaping 5 times when only one of them I did. And that was way back when it first started, when she was trying desperately to save her children and find out who was actually the murderer. She went to go find a lead that they weren't going to investigate. So since they weren't going to do it, she escaped to try and find this guy to prove her innocence. Well, if her story's true, if she is innocent, then that is a sane and rational thing to do, and I'm proud of her. But this woman can't seem to grasp that, well, now wait a minute, if she is innocent, then that would be a rational thing. None of this is making sense to a normal person. There's not one shred of doubt in this woman's mind that the woman is innocent? Really? She's a psychopath. And I have to say, I think that most of the people in the world today, like doctors, nurses, lawyers, are psychopaths because they're trying to defend their evil. They're trying to defend their ignorance and their stupidity. They're trying to defend this system. And this is why it says that Satan is blind, or the God of this world is blinding the minds of the unbelievers. They're all blind. Paul says that that these people who believe in this God of vengeance and this thing of law, right? And we've got to crucify the guilty and stone that woman. These kind of people, Paul said they are blind because when they read the law, they read it with a veil over their face. It's in sort of code. It's all, matter of fact, just law. You're guilty. This is the way it is. This is the system we live in. If you can't prove your innocence, and who can? No one's really innocent, right? So it's really a system of hypocrisy, according to Jesus. But that's another reason why they're blind. Because it's an eye for an eye, so therefore everybody's eye is poked out. A life for a life, therefore everybody's guilty and deserves death. And this hypocrite, she's judging her sister, and therefore I judge her of being guilty because she is willfully ignorant, and therefore she is guilty. And I dare say most of the people in this world are. And so listen further as she begins to try to prove beyond a doubt in your mind, based on circumstantial evidence and her somehow psychiatric pedigree, that she knows that Diane is evil and a psychopath, and yet she's describing herself. Listen.
And you begin to develop an ability to understand what it feels like to feel happy and sad. And then you can recognize that in others, so that when you see somebody in distress, you have an empathic response, meaning you feel bad by seeing somebody who feels bad.
So sociopath doesn't feel empathy?
A sociopath does not feel empathy.
All right, guys. She says a sociopath, which is what she believes Diane Downs is, does not feel empathy. They're going to convict this woman because they don't think she has empathy. Why? Have they sat and spent time with her? Do they know her heart? No. They saw an interview on television where she was defending herself, and they didn't think she was acting appropriately or speaking the way that they would talk. And I've seen those interviews, and I don't find them particularly accusative. I don't know what word to use. I don't find them to be proving that or indicating that she has no heart and doesn't have sympathy for her children. I've actually seen her cry, and a lot of stuff that they keep telling the world is that, well, she never cried or she did. They'll just say stuff like that, but there's never been any proof of that. She had tears down her eye. They were bawling and crying the day of the accident, but they're lying about that, and she never gets to tell her side of the story. Nobody ever told her side of the story except for a 5-minute clip when they talked to her brother or her dad. And most people don't want to believe her dad, even though he's got all the proof and the evidence, and her brother and other lawyers that have brought this proof out to show that she's innocent, but nobody wants to believe it. They don't want to listen. They don't want to hear that. Their evidence is simply that she must be a psychopath because our government important people that know everything, they know what you're thinking, right? They can read your mind, and they know she's a psychopath. And so their explanation is that she doesn't have sympathy for her children, therefore she must have done it. Well, again, like I said, that's not true. But here's the thing. What I find very interesting, I don't see any sympathy in this woman right here. Since I know the true story that Diane Downs is a decent, upright young woman who seems to be sane and very smart and intelligent, why would she take her children to the hospital? She's trying to kill them. Why couldn't you believe that somebody pulled her over and shot her kids? Why does it have to be that just because of her demeanor we're going to prove? I'll tell you why. Because they're covering up crimes in that department, in that town. There's corruption, and there are wicked, evil people pinning their mistakes on this one young woman, and they're going to let her go down with the boat because they're protecting themselves. And everybody's in on it, from the judge down to the lawyers in that area. The police are in on it. They're drug dealers. They're secret society members. And they've got great power. They even control the media. If you don't believe me, look, I'm going to be doing videos about the Charlie Manson thing, how it was connected with the satanic cult. Charles Manson may have been involved. He got a swastika on his forehead. My goodness. He got all these supposed girls that worship him. No. Charles Manson was a writer for the Beach Boys and Beatles. They were living with the Beach Boys. And I don't want to go into that right now. But the point is that there's the Son of Sam in New York. There's all these individuals, Ted Bundy. And this woman that wrote a book about Diane Downs was friends with Ted Bundy. There's something going on, but I wouldn't know because I don't have all access to all the facts to unwind all of their lies and their evil. But what I can tell you is just look at this woman talk about a woman that she doesn't know, that she's only seen in an interview, condemn her based on that. And yet when I look at this woman, I am saying, where is your empathy? What if Diane didn't do it? What if she's telling the truth? You don't have proof that she's lying. Just your little made-up idea that, well, she must be lying. I think that is not sympathy. I think you're a sociopath. And anyone who doesn't see that, you're also a sociopath. You're also a narcissist. Don't worry, most of you are. Most people are. We're all not grown-ups. None of us have reached the place where we're perfect and we never lie. But that's okay. When you know that you're a child, right? And you're not proud and you say, well, I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow up and I want to be like daddy. That's fine. That's perfectly normal. But when you're an imbecile and you say, I know everything and you're evil and I know you are, and therefore I have the right to imprison you for the rest of your life for something that I believe you did but I can't prove. That is a psychopath. And that is the situation with most of the judges that get up there and think that they can be our judge, hearing our case for 5 minutes and only hearing the evidence that the prosecution, who hates us and is trying to convict us and doesn't really care about who we are or what we really did and didn't bring any real evidence. And half of the stuff that people are being convicted for is stuff that, it doesn't make you a bad person. They got caught doing a drug or making a mistake or whatever, and they send them to jail for the rest of their life. No empathy. Knowing that it's their society that they're creating that's making people have these problems. Well, why don't you have a job? You're probably a pitiful little, lazy piece of crap, right? We should put you in jail for being lazy. Actually, I was born an orphan, beaten, thrown out. I'm barely making it. I don't even know who I am. I want to kill myself because I hate myself. You're right. Throw me away and put me in jail. I don't have any respect for myself. I give up. I'm tired. I can't go on. The judge is like, yeah, you're guilty. Bye. This is the world we live in, friends. And if we don't start waking up, this is the day of the Lord, the day of judgment. And we all have a decision to make. We have to make a decision. Who will we serve? Will we be loving and kind? Will we pass the class and overcome our anger and this bestial nature and not get down and worship the beast? But will we, even in the face of death or pain or harm that could be done to us, we will, and even in that, keep our integrity, and in our integrity, tell the truth, not lie about others, not do harm to anyone else, just to protect us or our family or to get gain, right? If you are protecting your family or yourself to get gain, right? Let's say that you're doing evil to other people, like taking their money, and you say, well, I'm going to get away with this because I need the money, even though it's hurting them, then you are a psychopath. And so if you're in a business, a vocation where you're prosecuting people day after day, many of them are just innocent and you don't really care, then you're a psychopath. If you're in the vocation of taking people into hospitals and working on them based on some protocol that some billionaire called Rockefeller is instituting, that is drugs that's harming, poisons, that's killing people, and the studies are showing this, and you haven't healed anybody in years, and most of your patients are dying, and you're being sued, and you know it, and you're lying in court and lying to yourself, then you're a psychopath. And if you're a nurse and you know that you wouldn't take the thing, and yet you're going out and giving it to other people, then you're a psychopath. And if you're doing anything in this world that is immoral, and yet you continue to do it because it is easier for you, then you have not yet attained unto a place where you are a child of the King, one who deserves to live in a world where everyone is free and has love and cares for each other and will always stand in their integrity. When Jesus was standing there, he did not lie, he did not bow, he did not give in. And the Apostle Paul says, I withstood them to their face, and I would not relent or give up your freedom 1 hour, that this freedom that you have in Christ might remain with you. Joseph Smith gave his life to defend the gospel of Jesus Christ, who came and lived and died for your sins, and stood up to these people like Brigham Young and these fallen Masonic individuals that were trying to take over the world in their little wife-swapping scheme, opening up the pits of hell, like Aleister Crowley, who had disciples that went on to make the Scientology Church, Mormons, and NASA, and all these individuals. They're all students of Charles Taze Russell, the grand wizard master of a evil skull and bones Illuminati that were announcing Zion's kingdom. They were in the Zionists that have intentions of bringing about a one world government, and they made a one new world translation of the scriptures and lied and continue to lie to this day to promote their evil agenda. Okay, like you walk up to a magician and they say, oh, look at this, I can make fire come out of the middle of nowhere. Well, they're distracting you, and you're not seeing they got something behind their back or up their sleeve or whatever. And you say, oh, no, this guy really did it. He made a bottle of soda disappear or whatever. He levitated or something. I saw him do it. No. There's always a way. Now, the ancient yogis, what they would do is they would take a crowd of people and say, we're going to go demonstrate a miracle from the grand yogi Grand Poopah here, who's going to be the God and leader of the group now, and you're all going to get down and worship him because he's God. When we're going to prove it. Oh, okay. Well, therefore he's God. Therefore I'm going to worship him, and therefore what if he said, oh, we've got to have swap our wives? Oh, well, let's do that then. We've got to give up our freedom and sell our soul to the Satan. Well, let's do it, because the man can make a lemon tree appear out of nowhere. Voila. Well, how did he do it? Well, before, when all there was 100 people that saw it, right? And they all met down below at the bottom of the trail in a little house, and they were all given a bottle of water. And everybody's bottle of water had a little drug. And by the time they got halfway up the hill, they were all hallucinating and under the mind control of the great master guru. And he, by suggesting that a tree was appearing out of nowhere, he made you believe it. It was LSD or some form of psychedelics that he gave you. And this is how he did it. Now, that is just one way that people can, think about these people that claim, oh, we went and talked to the dead. Oh, we brought up the dead, and say, okay, let's forget about whether or not you could or could not do that. But the opportunity is rife for trickery, for deception. The Bible tells us that there would be a great time of great deception in the latter days that would make everyone worship the beast. I'm going to tell you immediately. I'm not going to give you a bunch of, fluff. I'm just going to tell you flat out. It's so simple. You can understand the Bible. I mean, it's complicated if you want to. You can get down and deep into the scriptures and come up with little intricate details. But just on the surface, what is the beast? It's this carnal, bestial nature. That's all that represents. Each of the beasts have a different quality or nature, but they're all animals. They're not deities. And so we're going round and round on the wheel of rebirth, reincarnation, and we can't get out. And Jesus said we'll be in this hell until we pay the last penny. You've got to pay the price, and this is what it's all about, the redemption of your soul. And Jesus came and died for you, and all you have to do is believe. And what does that mean? It means open your eyes and realize you're not in this world. We're no part of this world. You're not guilty. You've been set free. You were always free. You were in Christ from the founding of the world. All right, enough said. We've gone through this so many times. But somebody wants you to believe that there is a reality here. Well, now, see, here's how it gets so confusing. I'm just going to go over this real quickly, and then we're going to get into some actual details on Earth right now in the present 2022 and why and how it's all being orchestrated. But just to give you a little background. See, the world we live in, you say, well, didn't God create this world? Our Heavenly Father and Jesus? No, Jesus came to the world and said, you must get out of this world. This world is no part of my Father's kingdom. Reject it. Take up your cross. Follow me. Satan offered him all the kings of the world if he'd do an act of worship. That's what Moses was offered by Yahweh. Moses said, look, I'll let you live, make you a chosen nation above all the other nations, and Moses, I'll make you king. But you must bow down to me. I'm the only God. I am jealous. That is my name. I do not allow you to talk to other gods. And anybody who touches my mountain, it's holy, does anything I say not to do, breaks any of my laws, I murder them immediately. But if you will do what I say, then I will make you rule over the nations, and they will be your slaves. And I'll give you gold, and I'll give you power, and I'll let you reign, and everyone will be under his own vine and fig tree. But he never offered them eternal life. He only offered mankind power in this physical world, and then death. See, that's what the law, he who has died has been acquitted from his sin. And unless you die, you cannot be acquitted from your sin. Unless blood is poured forth, the Bible, and this is quote, I'm not making this up. Unless blood is poured out, no forgiveness of sin takes place. And buddy, you've got for some kind of sin against you. All have fallen short of the glory of this God. You're not worthy. You're condemned under the law. Even the Lord himself, Jesus Christ, came to the earth and they condemned him under the law. Why? Because he wouldn't keep the Sabbath. He wouldn't obey this world. He wouldn't cooperate with this government. He said that the woman who was being stoned for breaking the law of adultery, he said, I don't condemn you. See, there is no mercy under the law. The law is the law. You have to apply it across the board equally. You cannot say, I forgive you. There's no mercy in law. And Jesus said, I require mercy, not law. So Jesus, when he said to the woman, you're forgiven, he was basically forgiven all mankind, because the woman represents the one who has the covenant with the husband or the owner. That's what it means to be a Baal, or the owner. Yahweh says, I am your Baal, your husband, and I own you. And you can't make a contract on your own or buy or sell. And, Exodus 21:7 says that a woman, if you sell your daughter, any man in Israel, this is the law, if you sell your daughter as a slave, when you sell, not if, because, I suppose you didn't have to sell your daughter. She could be a maiden till the day she died, work as a maid for her father, but she'd never have an inheritance. See? And many of the women never got inheritances anyway, because they were lower caste. So they only by becoming a sex slave, a breeder, they would breed slaves, and they'd get to live as a slave. But to become free, you couldn't, unless you were the chosen woman who gave birth to the heir, and then your heir, being the king, would grant you some sort of, power in the kingdom or whatever. You'd get some freedom. You weren't, you could be like the woman that's the ruling over the other maidens, the 7 maidens in your train, right? So you were the chief of the slaves, basically. All women were slaves. Except for, the Bible does mention that there was this woman, Sarah, who was the free woman. Hagar was the slave woman. And Paul says that the whole world that we have today, all the government and the laws and things that we're doing here, corresponds to that Hagar. We're all slaves. Under the covenant of who? El Elyon and Melchizedek, which is the new covenant of Christ, communion? No. We're under the law that came into being 430 years, did not make void the promise that was given to Abraham by El Elyon. Yeah, the promise is still there, and it holds, and we're all free, and the Lord came and delivered on his promise and redeemed us. But most of the world is still under this world, the one that Jesus said, I'm no part of it, and you've got to get out of Babylon. And this world, it's the God of this world that's blinding the minds of the unbelievers. He's a God of vengeance. He's a jealous God. That is his name. He will not pardon your sins. And blah, 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 blah. Moses condemns you. Jesus said, but I will set you free. And I have come to give you life in that more abundantly. So, Jesus is today, yesterday, and forever the same. But Yahweh created evil and darkness, and our God is light. There is no darkness in him at all. He is love. There is no jealousy in love. Love doth not get jealous. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13, we could go on to prove this, but I'm just briefly going over this introduction to get us started into some of the things that I want to talk about. So we're living in this world that's a physical, corporal, sensical world that has fallen into the state that it's in, where it's got a nature that is fallen, that is corrupted, that is carnal in nature and carnivorous, animalistic, bestial. So that's what the beast is. So getting the worship the beast, or to getting to, how does that happen? Well, through fear tactics. So Yahweh got us up on his throne. There's thick gloom and smoke and fire. And it says that the people were trembling, and Moses was sore afraid and trembling and begging God, please don't kill everybody. And people were dropping like flies because they were being, the Lord just was disgusted with humans. How dare they? And he wanted some blood, and he wanted some blood now. And if you didn't offer him a sacrifice or kill somebody, he wouldn't even let you live. So what this is a description of the world we live in. The world we live in, the society, the present system is an illusion. Yahweh sits upon his mountain, and people see him every day. People today still believe in him. Well, don't you see him, Dave? He's right there. It's the law. It's the government. You've got to obey him. Justice. You can't get around it. He is the supreme one. The law. Anger. Vengeance. Justice. All of these words that people say is the supreme thing. That we have to have justice, and we have to have vengeance. And we have to live by the system and put a mark upon your hand or your forehead to show your obedience, as it says in Deuteronomy, to Yahweh, and write the law of Moses upon your hand or your forehead. Whereas Christians, we get the seal of the living deity on our forehead, which is what? The name of our Father. Never says Yahweh. They don't have the name of Yahweh. See? Because Jesus asked Peter, who do you say I am? He said, you are the Son of the living divine being. Who's that? Well, Jesus said to the Jews, the Pharisees, the ones on the Sanhedrin there, who was accusing him of not keeping the Sabbath and breaking the law and declaring himself to be like God. He said, your father is the devil, and your father is a liar, and he's a murderer. And he was from the beginning, and you wish to do the desires of your father, which is the lust, or the desires of your father, which is the flesh, which is the bestial system. And he says, your father is from beneath, from this world. My father is above. He is my Father in heaven, Uranus. Hundreds of times in the New Testament, the Bible says that the divine being is Theos. That is the Greek deity that was in all the Bibles up until several hundred years AD, was Deus or Theos, changed slightly to Latin, but it was the same word, just a different spelling. It's Theos, which is the Athenian Greek spelling of Zeus. And it came down to Latin, it was Deus. But then the Germans took over Rome in 405 and took over and became the Holy Roman Empire. They brought a person from the lineage of Jeconiah, from the Judeans, who were under the law, who never came out and went to Palestine and became Christians under Christ. All the Judeans that were in Judea at the time of the destruction of Jerusalem, most of them have gone over and followed Jesus, and after he was crucified, they followed his brother James, who was thrown off the pinnacle of the temple, and that was the only way they were able to destroy Jerusalem. As long as James was praying, his knees were like platypuses. He spent his whole life on his knees praying, and they could not destroy Jerusalem until they finally killed him by throwing him off the precipice of the temple. There were several of these great martyrs, all the apostles. There were John the Baptist. There was John the Baptist's father, Zacharias, that Jesus said that all these Judeans were going to be guilty of his blood. From Abel all the way down to Zacharias, who was murdered before the temple there at Jerusalem. And Jesus said, your house is left unto you desolate, and not one stone will be left upon a stone. And 40 years went by, and in 70 AD, Jerusalem was destroyed, which was due to the prophecy of Jesus Christ, condemning this system and saying, I have set you free, and if the Son of Man sets you free, you're free indeed. So, the world we live in then is still the world that then was. And the world that is to come is a new heavens and a new earth wherein dwells righteousness. So the world that is now is prepared for fire, reserved unto fire for the destruction of ungodly men. We're no part of this world. But what is this world? People believe, like Jehovah's Witnesses and Adventists and certain Christians, they believe that it's just, it's just, when you're cussing, or that's part of the worldliness, or maybe some bad kings. We should have democracy or something. No, I'm sorry, but democracy is not part of Christianity, really. There isn't any law. We don't need senators. Okay, we have fathers, elders in the true faith of the Lord Jesus. We don't have officers. That's not in the Bible. We don't have rulers. Anyone who shall be, your leader shall be your servant. Jesus said, I'm washing your feet. If I've done this, then you should love one another and help one another. This is what Jesus wanted to say. Call no man your rabbi or your father on earth, but you're all brothers and sisters. So this is the kingdom. And we're completely devoid. The apostasy has spread now to a point where it's not just structural apostasy, like the beast government's running behind the scenes. But it's now to the point that it is a spiritual thing, that the minds of men have been warped and deluded. It's a great delusion. Now, the Bible said that. It says that many will not accept the love of the truth that they might be saved, but in turn receive the great delusion, which is the great apostasy. And it says, the coming of the Lord Christ will not come until the great apostasy comes first, when the man of sin will be revealed. Who is he? Who exalted himself above all that is called God, and as though he is God, he sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This goes back to Daniel. Well, we know who that is. It's Yahweh, who said, I am God and there is none else. Who said, I will he was angry at Jesus because Jesus was equal unto the Lord, his Father. And he says, I am so angry, I will cast you down to hell. It says, O Lucifer, O shining star. Jesus said, I am the bright and shining star. Yeah, it was Yahweh that took Jesus and sent him to hell to pay for the price for his blasphemy. Jesus was the one who was under the law of Yahweh. Look at Isaiah 14. It's Yahweh condemning Lucifer. Yahweh's the condemner, the adversary at court to condemn you. The one who, how could he condemn us except through law? Jesus is our advocate. Satan is the adversary at court. The prosecutor. And so he prosecutes Jesus first, condemns him under the law, and sends him to hell. Jesus went to hell for 3 days. But Jesus arose and will come back a second time and defeat this world by taking us out of the world with him. We will be changed in the twinkling of an eye. So the world that we live in today is some sort of deception. How far does that deception go? As a Jehovah's Witnesses, I was always taught that it was just spiritual, that it was just like lies and false governments and false religion. That's all it was. When Jesus comes, it's going to be the same earth, and he's going to set up another government based on the Old Testament again. Got to serve Yahweh and keep all of his, keep the great memorial, the Passover, keep all the principles of the law, judge one another, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. If somebody's done something wrong, they got to be executed. This is the kind of thing. But that's not what Jesus taught. But you see, it's much deeper than that. Because you see, when we were created with bodies of light. We were in Christ from the founding of the world. And what is Christ? Well, when Christ died and rose again, he said, touch me. I'm not a spirit. A spirit doesn't have flesh and bones, as you see that I do. So they touched him, and they said, wow, you're real, you're substantial. He raised up his body. He raised up his body. And we're going to have body. We don't know what we will be like, but when we see him, we will be like him, the Bible says. So we're going to be raised up and ascend. What is it that we ascend? But first we descended. Christ descended into the lower regions. That's the world we're in. And he overcome this old world of hell and conquered it and got the keys of death and Hades. And now he's alive forevermore. So he goes to another place. We're going to meet him in the air. We're going to be transformed at the Mount of Transfiguration. The 144,000 will be boom. Why do you think the 144,000 meets the Lord on Mount Zion in the air? Because that's where we're transfigured. Like it said, the Mount of Transfiguration with Moses and Elijah and Jesus. There were three. Who were they? Well, Moses is the law, the body. Elijah got up on Mount Horeb and found the still small voice. So he went high. Horeb is the light, or. And that is the mountain of the Lord's kingdom, which is light. Not Sinai, which Moses got the law from, which means the moon in Sumerian and Hebrew. Shinai means the moon. So Elijah went into heaven. Well, not the highest heaven. There are three heavens. Remember, Paul went to the third heaven, which was paradise. But that's not the Garden of Eden. The third heaven is the highest place, or the center, where the throne of the heavenly Father is. And that is the great paradise, or the blueprint for the entire world. Okay? That is where all is good and nothing dies. And nobody gets in there. You see? Because that's the most holy. It's got to be protected. It's a sanctuary. Now, if that sanctuary ever gets defiled, if any human being allows their sanctuary to be defiled, Satan enters in there and lies, and they begin to believe it by being deceived, then they put a wall around it. This ego creates another veil, which is a courtyard, the courtyard of the Gentiles, which they considered evil and mundane, and so the courtyard was the earthly, carnal, physical world that was created by the devil. How do we know? Because it says in Genesis chapter 1, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. And that's all he ever created, and the sea. But hell is for dead people. It's for the delusioned. It's for the suffering. Our Father in heaven didn't make suffering. He made light, and only light, and he dwells in unapproachable light. And there is no darkness in him, and there is no wrath. Only love, and there is no jealousy. He lets the sun shine on the righteous and the unrighteous, supposedly. Supposed unrighteous. He lets the rain come down on the righteous and the supposed unrighteous. He's not partial. He doesn't keep account of your injuries or your sins against him, Paul says. Love doesn't keep account of injury. He is love. So, you see, on the first day of creation, or the first chapter, I should say, which is the story of creation, it gives you 7 days, 6 successive days of creating, and the 6th day, the crowning of his creation, was man. Male and female made he them. They were spiritual. They were perfect. They never died. Now, the next chapter, chapter 2, Yahweh enters the scene. And he doesn't create. It's already been created. But he bara, he should say he yatsar. Creation is bara. That's what happened on the first chapter. The second chapter is yatsar, and that means to form. So Adam was formed then from the elemental, the dust. And so later on in the Bible, you talk about these elementals that keep us in bondage and bring us to death. For dust thou art, and dust you shall return, Yahweh says in his anger. And he made this turning cherubim with the 4 faces, which is the astrological 4 faces of the astrological wheel. They go round, that spin around to guard the way into the tree of life. So we cannot get to the tree of life because in his anger he would not allow us to achieve eternal life, to become like God. We'd already partaken of the knowledge to learn how to become, like God by knowing what is good and evil. Animals can't understand, or they're not aware or conscious. They don't have that higher awareness, the higher I am. Not the I am of vengeance of Yahweh, the ego that makes this courtyard, this material realm that's full of lust and desires thereof. But the I am, which is the Christ I am, which is I am the life, I am the truth, and I am the way. And nobody comes unto the Father except through that ego, the higher consciousness. I am the resurrection. Martha, I am the resurrection. I am the life. I am the door. I am the good shepherd. I am all that you would wish me to be. I am you who creates and makes. I am the perception that perceives that which is the real creation. I am the Logos, the expression of the Father, who was with the Father from the beginning. And all things came into existence through me. Without me, nothing, and it all came into existence. And everything else that you see that's not a part of that light, everything else that's in the darkness is just a phantom, an illusion, a temporary world. Like the grains and the grasses of the earth that grow up and the flowers that next day are cut down and made into bread and thrown into the oven and consumed and go into the sewer, Jesus said. So that's the fake, the temporary world that's only a classroom, an illusion that was made by Yahweh. And it is a system of trial, a tribulation, a test. And Jesus came into the world and partook of flesh and blood, as did his brethren. And was the firstborn among many brethren, because he was first in all things. Okay, he is the first and the last, and he is the root and the offspring of David. Now think about it. People who believe in Christianity today, who believe Jesus is the offspring of David, they believe that verse because it's scriptural. They have no way to know it, but it says in the Bible, so they believe it. Well, then why don't they accept also in the same verse where it is the root of David? Because the root means, when a plant is growing, it grows from a root. And Jesus also said, I am the vine, or where the liquid life is flowing through the vine, and you got to be one of the branches or something connected to the vine in order to get life. I am the life. And so whatever man is, we are in that which is Christ. And we were there from the founding of the world. Whatever we are, the root of all of this is Jesus. So this is the reality. And so the world that we're living in is fake. So that's a prelude to what I'm trying to say. Now I'm 30 minutes into this, and I wanted to share a little clip with you. Take a look at this little clip. You'll see hopefully you'll be able to get the drift of what I'm trying to do. This will be my door to enter into this discussion, to help maybe wake us up a little bit, to see what's going on around us in this world of elementals. Like Paul says, is that, the rudimentary things of the world. Christ went to hell and conquered these lordships and governments and powers and dominions, the archons, and conquered them. And he says that they are the elementary spirits. That's what he called them. We're no longer under the elementary laws or spirits or rudimentary powers that hold us bound to this world. And so the elementary means the dust, this mortal form that we're in. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go, friends. I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.